Accessibility is an idea that many of the larger game development studios strive towards nowadays. Game companies want their products to reach the widest possible audience and get the highest number of sales, but it seems today that people, when talking about the term, have quite a narrow-minded viewpoint. To some people, talking about their favorite game as being accessible might only mean that the game is easy. If a game is so easy that a child can play it, then it's accessible to all ages. They also might mean that the game has many options available to be played by different control schemes or by differently abled individuals. Or, if a game is available on every major platform, then it's accessible to a lot of people who play games. While these statements hold some truth, the notion of accessibility covers a much wider range than what I feel most people are referring to when using the term. Webster defines the word accessible as capable of being reached, used, understood, appreciated, among other synonyms which we won't be going over in this video. All of these definitions can apply when talking about the accessibility or inaccessibility of video games, and I can think of no better example to use for these descriptions than the sponsor of today's video, Raid Shadow! Nah, I'm joshing ya. Could you imagine though? We're talking about Nintendo here. Ah yes, the big N, the face of gaming, the time-tested classic, the baby kitty, easy on the eyes, simplest mechanics and stories in the industry, Nintendo. I could think of no other company more deserving of the award for most accessible video games than Nintendo.
Like that's ever gonna happen. What a load of...
Nintendo? More like Nintendo. Listen, Nintendo's games are simple, yes. They fall under the jurisdiction of maybe 3 of these terms. But at the end of the day, Nintendo is a mega corporation. And mega corporations care about 3 things. They want you to care about their image, they want you to buy their products, and they want you to continue to purchase their new products as they come out. The whole "don't ask questions, buy product" meme is extremely on point regarding this company and how they want their customers to behave. And if you think any differently, then I'm sorry, but you're naive. Well, yeah, that's okay and fine, Nintendo's a greedy company, but if the games are good and I'm happy when I play all these great games, then everyone wins, right?
WRONG!
Nintendo doesn't want you to actually play their games. They've been doing everything in their power to make you think that you like their games and spend money on them. And they've been doing it for years, too.
Wait a minute!
This isn't a video about accessibility. That's right! I tricked you, you absolute buffoons! This is actually a video of me complaining about anti-consumer conspiracies! Remember a few years ago when Nintendo tried to take down Let's Players and any other unsanctioned videos talking about their games? Well, if people watch videos or streams of our games online, then they won't want to buy them anymore! But eventually they read the room and realized that what they were doing is getting a lot of negative attention. Hey, you, do you want to make a heartfelt fan mod of an older game? A game that Nintendo isn't even making money on anymore just to show how much you love it? It's basically free advertising. Nope. People would be playing games for free, or even worse, taking their money away from us. We gotta take it down! Or even worse, what if they just blatantly steal the concepts themselves to sell it back to you? Oh, but they have to set a precedent on protecting their copyright, even if the mod is in good intentions. Okay, fine, but then why are they not making the product it's based on available to buy? You're not even allowed to back up or emulate games that you legally own under the premise of potential piracy. This is what I mean by Nintendo not being completely accessible. Let's think of it by a specific example. I really love Ocarina of Time. I don't know if you heard, but a lot of people think this game's pretty neato. I would like to play this game again, but let's pretend that I have a little problem in that my N64 doesn't work anymore. All I'd need to do is buy a new console, but Nintendo doesn't seem to sell that anymore, nor the game, so let's think of our other options. We could buy a used set online, but that price is nowhere near acceptable. The game was re-released on a compilation disc for the GameCube, but that disc is also pretty expensive. What about the Virtual Console? I still got my Wii lying around. Oh, wait, they shut the service down. How about that 3DS remake? Well, as luck would have it, it is the only officially sanctioned way to play this game in the year 2020, ignoring the fact that it's a remake and not the original game. But eventually, sooner rather than later, that game is no longer going to be available on the 3DS eShop, and then what? By the way, this is assuming that you already own a 3DS, as there's not going to be an easy way to get that console for a reasonable price soon either! And this is one of the most frequently re-released games in Nintendo's history, and they currently have no means of making the game available for people on their current cycle of consoles. This is ignoring the plethora of games that have never seen the light of day since their initial release. I'm sure that it's eventually going to appear on the Switch at some point, but how long are Switch owners going to have to wait? And when the next cycle of consoles comes around, is it just going to repeat itself? The code for the Virtual Console emulator and the ROM for the game already exists in Nintendo's database. The only thing stopping them is the potential to profit off of the game. Oh hey, let's re-release a game that only came out one generation ago, and wow, crazy, it just vanished from the eShop. Would you look at that? Well, looks like you're gonna have to spend a whole $60 if you ever want to play Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze again, fucker. Ooh, better yet, let's let out some decade-old games from the fucking Disney Vault, games that people really want to play again, port them over with zero added features, sell it at full price for a limited time, buy it now or suck a chode. And Nintendo knows we want to play their older stuff. Nintendo games are fueled by nostalgia. It's painted all over their series. Do you seriously think that nostalgia would be nearly as strong if people could just play all the older games they wanted and burn it out of their system? What if you played an older game and realized it wasn't as good as you remembered? No. Nintendo has been making the same games for decades, and they don't want you to potentially lose all that nostalgia. The only excuse for innovation that they've had for the most part is tied to gimmicks and control schemes, and without realizing it, they've created the perfect excuse to not make their games accessible from the last few generations of consoles. Just think about it for a minute. Do you really think we are ever going to get fully realized re-releases or remakes of every game on the Wii or DS? Not unless the console can fully emulate the Wii's motion controls and the infrared sensor. Not unless the current console can support two screens with one screen having touch and microphone support. The only way it's going to happen is if they completely rework the control schemes for some of these games, and evidently that's more effort than it's worth. They've dug themselves into a hole here, but hey, at least no one is pirating copies of Kirby's Canvas Curse, because God forbid more people be able to play that game. Hey, Nintendo, listen, I've got a secret for you. I know exactly how to get people to stop pirating games and how to increase the sales of your older titles at the same time. I'll even give it to you for free. You listening? All you need to do is sell the game for a reasonable price. Okay, I will get off of my soapbox now. There's other stuff I actually want to talk about. Nintendo's games are still fun and they've been making steps in the right direction, but the point is that over the 30-something years that this company has been a major player in the games industry, they've done more harm than good towards the preservation and accessibility of their older titles. Let's take this into a different direction. What's a game that's accessible in the sense of being readily available, but isn't really appealing to play or easy to understand? Geez, a lot of really popular games fit that description. Competitive games, story-heavy games, action games, the list goes on. Just because a game might have a niche audience doesn't mean it's necessarily bad, but the fact still remains that there are some people who do and some people who don't want to play most games that are out there. Want to get into Street Fighter? The game's on sale all the time on most major consoles. Well, you better start learning those combos and getting that mid-fight squared away, fuckhead. Want to get immersed in one of the richest stories you will ever experience? Well, sit that controller down and grab some popcorn, because you won't be playing this game. Oh man, this game is great. The combat is fluid and fun, and the story is rich too, but what the fuck actually happens? Listen, I love me some Dank Souls, but if you have to watch some YouTuber explain the lore to you, then I'm sorry, but your game is not fully accessible, even if it's fantastic. The term accessible really has a large jurisdiction under its belt, and using it to describe games may not really be the most accurate thing in the world. But there's gotta be some game out there that hits all of these marks. What's a perfectly accessible type of game that's easy to play, available for a reasonable price, able to be understood by a wide audience?
Shadow Legends.
Sponsor of
today's
video.
Shadow Legends.
Aw, shit, it's mobile games. I swear, I did not even get this far in my thought process when I made that joke earlier, but, actually, yeah, putting quality aside, mobile games really tick off every box, and like them or not, they're here to stay. Heck, these games might even be a great example of a game being too accessible. What's a wider-reaching audience than literally everyone with a phone?
You guys have phones?
Yeah, you guys all have phones, right?
And for the low price of free $99, you gotta make a profit somehow. Yes, everyone come download our game. Anyone can play it, and anyone can win. All you have to do is hit the magic win button, and all the big titty anime girl JPEGs can be yours. Alright, I think I made my point. Accessible is not synonymous with good, and at the end of the day, most gaming companies just want your hard-earned cash. Does that mean that accessible games are inherently bad? Of course not. I still love me some Nintendo, and the only reason I'm so harsh on them is because I do love their games and I want them to be better. But at the same time, just because a game is appealing and available enough for you to play, doesn't necessarily mean that the game is good. You can get sucked into a game and have a great time at first, only to realize that you didn't like the whole experience later on. There's no shame in that. Something don't fall for the sunk cost fallacy. In addition, just because a game is hard to play or hard to come by, doesn't mean that you can't like it. Even if it's not for everyone, my favorite games are the ones that beat my ass in at first, but were just fair enough to make me want to get better. That feeling of getting better and finding new and creative ways to improve the experience is what keeps me coming back to these games. And the hurdle of accessibility is something that I had to overcome in order to have these experiences. The lesson that I want to leave you with is that maybe sometimes leaving your comfort zone might have you ending up learning to love a new favorite. And that everyone should fight against anti-consumer practices. Good night, everybody!
This is a journey into money. Loads of money. Oh nein, oh nein, oh nein. Ich laute Money.